so excited you're joining me today for this macchiato tree skirt. If you haven't seen the other macchiato videos on my channel, please do. I have created a sweater in both child and adult sizes, a matching hat, as well as this really adorable poncho from child to plus sizes as well. Today we're going to be doing the macchiato tree skirt, which can also be found on my blog for the written instructions. And you will need the Wool Ease Thick and Quick Lion Brand yarn. This is a 6 bulky yarn. There's 106 yards per ball of yarn. You will also need a size P. This is a 10mm crochet hook. This is the Furl Streamline, one of my faves. I especially love these streamline acrylic hooks for working something bulky like this. Then you'll need some scissors. A couple of stitch markers can be really helpful. Not necessary, I just find them helpful. And then also a tapestry needle to weave in the ends. To do this, we are going today on this video be working up the tabletop table runner. So something for your coffee table or maybe even your dining room table to put decor on for those mini trees. I love the mini trees, especially for those who live in a big apartment. I know when I had my first apartment, we just didn't have room for a tree, but it's still fun to be festive. So we're going to be working up on this video the tabletop size, but each size beyond the tabletop size just builds on out. So follow along for the tabletop size, and then I'll give you some instructions on how to keep building out as well as the written instructions on the blog. So let's get started. To get started, we will make a slip knot and then place that onto our hook. Now we are going to chain 29. So now that we have chained 29, we will be half double crocheting in the second chain from the hook and across. But I just want to note something for the tabletop version. Sometimes for a tabletop version, we don't necessarily need the split. Sometimes you do, just depending. If you're setting a tree on top of it and you don't need to put any of the tree stand underneath, then you're not necessarily going to need the split. For all the other tree skirts, it'll be worked in rows because we need that split in order to get it around the base of the tree. So if you wanted to work this in the round, you absolutely could by starting by chaining 28, joining, and all the remaining instructions would be worked by joining and turning, but everything else would remain the same. Before this, we're going to follow the pattern. That's just a little tip if you wanted to get rid of the slit that goes around the tree and you just simply wanted it to be more like a big placemat. For doing the slit, we've chained 29, and now in the second chain from the hook, we are going to half double crochet. And then we are going to continue to half double crochet in every chain across. Now, if you notice, I like half double crocheting into the back humps of the chain. And when we do the chain, we have like the V side, and then we have the side that has these bumps. And I am working on the side that has the bumps because I feel like it creates my edge that shows to be the nice edge showing. So continue to half double crochet across and you will have 28 half double crochet stitches at the end of the row. Now, why do we have stitch markers? I a lot of times like to go ahead and mark the first stitch in my row just because I sometimes get lazy at counting and I like to know where I'm supposed to stop and start. So if you're like me and you just want to have a little bit of a lifeline, I guess you could say, mark the first stitch in your row. Now that we have 28 stitches, we are going to turn our work because we're working in rows. And then you'll find that the next instructions on the written pattern on the blog read to work in the established stitch pattern for even rows while also increasing every second stitch. So I have in the notes the even row established stitch pattern and the odd row established stitch pattern. The difference in those is that we're just flipping. So for the even rows, we will start by working a half double crochet in the back loop only, and then a half double crochet in the front loop only, and then we alternate that across. For the odd rows, we're just switching that where we begin by half double crocheting in the front loop only, and then half double crocheting in the back loop only, all the way across. So we will be working in those established stitch patterns while also increasing. So let's do this for round 2. For the very first stitch in the row, I am going to be using a stacked single crochet. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can simply chain one and then half double crochet into that first stitch. I just find I like the edges better whenever I substitute my chain one for a stacked single crochet. To do a stacked single crochet, because I will be starting in the back loop only, I'll insert my hook into that back loop, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops, but we're not done yet. Now we're going to insert our hook into this loop, the base loop over here, so the loop on the left of the stitch we just created, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through again. So there's my very first stitch in the row. It's really important if you use these stacked single crochets to mark that stitch, because sometimes when you get to the end, you don't want to work too far into that first loop. This kind of works as your chain. So mark that first stitch. We've done a half double crochet in the back loop only, and then for our next one, it will be a half double crochet into the front loop only. But since we are increasing every second stitch, then we are going to once again half double crochet in that front loop. So now we will do a half double crochet in the back loop, and now a half double crochet in the front loop. And since this is the second stitch again, we will do a second half double crochet in that front loop. So we'll be repeating that across: half double crochet in the back loop, and then two half double crochets in the front loop. Half double crochet in the back loop only, and then do a half double crochet and an increasing half double crochet into the front loop only. So you'll work that all the way across, and at the end of this row, your stitch count will be 42. So we will be increasing by 14 stitches for these upcoming increasing rows. And now as I come to the last stitch in the row, that once again is that second stitch, and I will be increasing that stitch. I'm going to take out my stitch marker and turn. And now we will begin row 3. So row 3 is an odd row. We will be starting in the front loop this time instead of the back loop. And I'm going to once again be starting with a stacked single crochet. Feel free just to chain one and half double crochet if that's more comfortable for you. And I'm going to place my stitch marker into that first stitch. And now that I've completed my first stitch in the front loop only, I'll be alternating between the front loop and the back loop across. However, we will still be increasing, and this time we're increasing on every third stitch in this row. So I've done my first stitch in the front loop, then I will do my next stitch into the back loop. So there's the second stitch of the row. And then my third stitch will be in the front loop. And this is on the third stitch where I will do an increasing stitch in the same front loop. Now to do that again, I will go to the back loop for one half double crochet, the front loop for one half double crochet. And now for this back loop, I'll half double crochet. And since it's the third stitch again, I will do an increasing stitch. And I'm just going to keep repeating that across, working in the front loop and then the back loop. And on that third stitch, I will place an increasing stitch. This will once again increase the stitches by 14, which means at the end of this row, we will have 56 stitches. So complete this row and then come on back for row 4. And now as I come to the end of the row, in the very last stitch, I will still be doing that increasing stitch in that third stitch in this set. And now I will take out my stitch marker and I'm going to turn for row 4. Now for row 4, once again, we are still going to be increasing as we go, this time on every fourth stitch. And this is an even row, so we will be starting by half double crocheting in the back loop only. I'm going to do a standing single crochet instead of the chain one and the half double crochet in the first. I just like the way it looks along the edges. I'm going to mark that first stitch. So my first half double crochet in the very first stitch was worked in the back loop only. And now I will do one in the front loop only, and then in the back loop. And now for the fourth stitch, it will be in the front loop, and then I will also place an increasing stitch in the same. And that's what we will repeat across. We will Do a half double crochet in the back loop, half double crochet in the front loop, half double crochet in the back loop, and now for the fourth stitch, we are going to half double crochet in the front loop and then place an increasing half double crochet as well. So once again, this increases by 14 stitches, and at the end of this round, we will have 70 stitches. And as I come to the end of the row, my last one is also a stitch that we do an increasing half double crochet in. And now we take out our stitch marker and we turn. So here's the fun part. This is now where we are going to do the last two rows for our tabletop size. These two rows will be puff stitches. It's a bit of a yarn eater, but it's a lot of fun. So here we go. I'm going to turn. And now for this one, I do chain one. I do a turning chain for this one just because we're going to be working over some stitches here. Now I'm going to skip the first stitch, and in the second stitch, I am going to half double crochet. And now we are going to come back to that first stitch and we are going to work a puff stitch. So we are going to yarn over, insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we're going to do that two more times. Yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now we have 7 loops on our hook, and we will yarn over and pull through all 7 loops, and that completes the one puff stitch. Those are the steps that we repeat all the way across on this row. We skip a stitch, half double crochet, and then work the puff stitch into the stitch that we skipped. So skip a stitch, half double crochet, and work a puff stitch into the stitch that we skipped. And also, I will note that I should have done this right off the bat, but I can still see it. It is a wise idea to mark the first stitch in this row as well, since that half double crochet stitch kind of gets swallowed up by that puff stitch. Continue to work all the way across by doing the half double crochet after skipping a stitch and then the puff stitch in the skip stitch. This will not be an increasing row. This row will still have 70 stitches. Now, as I work my last 2 stitches at the end of this row, I will half double crochet after skipping one, and then I work my last puff stitch in the skipped stitch. I'm going to go ahead and remove that stitch marker. It's a bit in my way. And now that I've got that last puff stitch, I am going to turn. So this is the end of row, what are we on, row 5? Yes, this is the end of row 5, and now we're going to work row 6, and row 6 is the last row for this mini tree skirt. So let's turn and get row 6 done so we can admire our project. For row 6, we are doing the exact same thing. So we're just repeating row 5, where we chain 1, and then we half double crochet after skipping a stitch. So chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and be smart and mark this time, although it's not as necessary since I'm not working back, but habit. And then go ahead and puff stitch into the stitch that we skipped and continue that across. Skip 1, half double crochet, and then puff stitch into the skip stitch and work that all the way around. All right, so now I've worked my way across this row, doing my half double crochet in the last stitch, going back and working that skip stitch for the last puff stitch of the row. And there you have it. So I'll take out, this is where I'm stopping for this. I've already created a really large one to go underneath, probably about like a regular size tree. And I wanted one for, I picked up this really cute mini tree on sale. So of course I just couldn't help myself. And I'm like, oh, it'd be cute to have a matching tree skirt for the mini tree. So If you want to keep on going because you want to make one, which I love mine for a regular size tree, please do. For the video, I'm not going to be showing those instructions because it's simply just repeating a lot of what we've done. So we just completed 6 rows. We've used a little bit less than 1 ball of yarn to create the mini one. To make the full size, the largest size, you will need 8 balls. And to make the medium size one, you'll need about 4. The measurements of the large size and the schematics of all this are on my blog. But since we're stopping here, I also want to show you how to do the trim around the edges because we want this to look nice. And it will be the same for all the sizes, will be worked the same with the trim. If you want to keep on going for rows 7, 8, 9, and 10, you would work the same established stitch pattern we had been working, but you would increase in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th stitch, and then do puff rows. And then you would keep on going beyond that for the large size. Like I said, I've got all of that written out on my blog if you want to keep on going and creating the larger sizes. It can also be purchased as a downloadable ad-free PDF pattern, and those links are also on the blog. Now, this is okay if you wanted to stop here, but I'm super picky sometimes that I want to create like cleaner edges. So no matter what size you have stopped on, whether it's the mini tabletop size, the medium, or the large, these will be our next steps. I'm going to chain one just to kind of finish off this corner a bit sharper. And now I'm simply going to slip stitch along all the edges. So I'm going to slip stitch into the center, around the center, back out again, and then along the outside edge. I don't want to make these too tight because I don't want to curl my edges. And I'm really just adding a nice border. As you can see, it's already starting to kind of straighten that out so that it just looks cleaner. This will take almost the rest of the ball, which is why at the beginning of the video I showed picking up maybe 2 balls for this, just in case yours ends up using just a little bit more yarn, because we are really cutting it close here. But technically 1 ball should do it for this size. I'm always just that paranoid person that tends to pick up extra yarn versus, running tight on yarn. I always like to have an extra ball around versus, having to go back to the store. But that, I don't know. I'm a hoarder, so that could be a bad thing. Maybe don't listen to me on that one. But notice how we've got that nicer edge compared to this edge. Now we've got this nicer, cleaner edge simply by slip stitching around. So I'm going to finish that. I'm going to slip stitch around all the perimeters of this, and then I'll show you what it looks like. And now that I've worked those slip stitches all the way back around, I'm going to go ahead and fasten off my yarn and weave in my ends and then enjoy this new tree skirt. So the nice thing about this is when I'm filming on camera and I don't push pause, I can see how long this took me. And this took me about less than 40 minutes on camera. So it's a pretty quick project for this mini tree skirt. And it really can add a lot to that small tree to make it extra special no matter what space it's in. I only have this much yarn left, which is just enough. So one skein will work for this, but if you want to make something bigger, obviously you will need more. And I really hope you enjoyed this project. I thought it was a ton of fun. I'm really going to enjoy having this mini tree skirt for a small tree, either on my coffee table or in my son's room, since he is begging for a tree in his room this year. A little touch from his mom. I hope you enjoy me again soon and you also have a safe and happy holiday season. Please hit that subscribe button and come back for more projects.